my approach to healthcare is just to be an advocate and go based off of what is in the patient's best interest, what they express is in their best interest, and what feels right for them. Because it isn't even always necessarily about the particular illness or disease, if we're just talking in a negative way, or the goal of wellness. On the other hand, it's just, but what is their quality of life? Like, what is a win for them?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
Welcome back, guys. You asked and we delivered. You've been
We're the
asking
best.
us. Oh my God, are we the best? Are we the best? You guys have been asking us, what's the deal with grounding? I got to know about grounding. I want more information. So we brought you the best of the best. Dr. Laura Koniver is a holistic physician, a grounding advocate, and a speaker. She also is the author of the book, The Earth Prescription, which that name for me, Dr. Laura, that does it for me.
Yeah, it's a good title.
She's been featured in tons of news and media outlets. She writes a regular column in an organic lifestyle magazine and also offers tons of free articles, videos, and guides on how to get started with grounding yourself. So she is the absolute boss in this space, and we are super lucky to have her on with you guys today to let you know everything you need to know about grounding. So welcome, Dr. Koniver.
Awesome. I'm excited to be here, but please, Laura, not Dr. Koniver, or just Laura. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. That's great.
Yeah, I think that grounding has really taken on some front seat attention I feel like just this last year, pretty much. It's like really picked up some steam. So a lot of people are wondering, like, how do I do this? Like, what are the basics? Like, do I just go around, take my shoes off? So we're really going to dive into that. But I want to just give them a little bit of background for you, like how you got started in this career. And like what got you interested?
Sort of like we were talking about right before we launched, just being a mom. I have a son and a daughter who are adults now, but when my daughter was first born, she had colic. And even though I was a physician, I just ran to the pediatrician because it just freaked me out. She was crying continuously. And I left with like 3 prescriptions for my 6-day-old baby. I mean, it was ridiculous, I just was a little overwhelmed. And so the only time that she wasn't crying is if I was outside barefoot walking outside. I lived in Arizona at the time. And I never heard about grounding all through medical school residency. Of course, they don't teach you about anything about grounding, but I just noticed she would not cry if I was outside, if we were outside. And it wasn't because fresh air, because if she was in a stroller or in a car, crying. It was just me being grounded to the earth, holding her. And that soothed her entire digestive tract and released pain. And so over time, I dove into the medical literature and found out this was an actual healing modality. And it did actually have double-blind placebo-based medical studies, and it's a real thing. So I took a little time away from practicing medicine when my babies were really little, but then when I went back into medicine, it just transformed everything, because I didn't want to do conventional medicine, because I remember getting all these prescriptions and thinking it's not helping. So when I re-entered medicine, I did it from a holistic point of view, and grounding is really the mainstay.
That's so perfect, because like you've had exposure to both ends of the spectrum. Yeah. And had like once you kind of like have something that comes in and almost slaps you in the face, like this is really effective. And there is a ton of literature behind it that we just don't, on a mainstream perspective, like we just don't hear about, and we just aren't exposed to that. But once you kind of like dabble in a little bit, you're hit with, oh, there's a bunch of information back here.
Right. Well, that even shocked me too, because, back then, 25 years ago, I had just graduated medical school and had just started practicing. And in medical school, they teach you that how conductive the body is. And when we're looking at, an EKG, we're looking at the heartbeat, the electrical activity of the heart, or when we're, looking for stroke or a sleep study, and we have EEGs, and we're looking at, those printouts of brain patterns. So we know how conductive and electrical the human body is, but we didn't ever connect it with a way to support wellness. We just look at it as how to diagnose stroke or heart attack or muscular dystrophy, or anything that's electrical about the body. We would look at it to diagnose illness and disease, but it was never mentioned that this might be a way to support natural health. So, and I find that with a lot of conventional medicine, it'll be like, we're finding what's wrong, and here's some stopgap measures. but we're not actually supporting your health in any way. So it's just another conductive health of the body is just a whole nother way. But any modality is the same thing. We're looking at disease and putting a fire out with the disease versus supporting health. And so
that feels just like speaks to me right now, feels super relevant. I'm currently 9 months pregnant,
Oh,
and
wow. That's awesome.
thank you. The path that I've gone on, I've like started in a very like conventional medicine and then switch over to midwives and more of a holistic experience for me, because I just felt like we were like looking for something to be wrong, where
Mm-hmm.
I was really looking for ways to support. Like I was like, are there any, like, what are the stretches, what are some of the teas that we
Mm-hmm.
can do, like what are some of these like holistic methods. Once you kind of switch over, you get that information. Like primrose oil, my midwife was just talking to me about, and I was like, I've never heard of this, why wouldn't we
Mm-hmm.
talk about this? Like
Mm-hmm.
it just feels very relevant to me right now, because like sometimes in that setting we are looking just for like a diagnosis, or we're
Right.
looking to figure out almost like just in a reactive way,
Right.
instead of like how can we best support your healthy body, your healthy pregnancy, how can we
Right.
best support you, your body, and your environment right now to
Mm-hmm.
be the most successful and healthiest that you can.
Yeah, now I look at conventional medicine as almost just emergency medicine, all of it. Because I mean, thank God for it. My appendix ruptured and I would have died if they didn't go in and take it out, right? But I don't look at it at all as healthcare. It's
Yeah.
emergency medicine. It's not maintaining or even supporting health. There's almost no aspect of it that does that.
I wanted to ask you because I can't remember where I read it, whether it was on your website or maybe one of the news articles that you've done, but you talked about going back to your practice after your kids were born,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing your patients again in the traditional setting, and you
Mm-hmm.
described this one day where you like
Where
decided.
did you find that? I have mentioned that a few times, but just in random areas. I don't even think it's on my website. You must have heard some interview. But yes, I still remember that patient. I went back and I had little kids, and um, all of a sudden the next patient that walked in just I felt like was a little kid to me. I mean, it was a grown woman, but she was just coming in for her annual pap smear and wanted birth control pills and stuff like that. So it was just, just regular run of the mill, 15 minutes, do the speculum exam, give her the prescription. And then she left, and I thought, oh my gosh, if that was my little baby girl, my Clara, I would want that doctor to make sure is she safe in her relationship? Bigger picture things. How is she doing? What? I don't know. I just had this really bad feeling, and the more I thought about it, I just started getting a knot in my stomach, and I thought, I let that woman walk out of my office with a prescription for birth control pills, and I just had this feeling like it wasn't a good situation, and it was just like an intuitive feeling. So I don't know. I do not know the follow up on that patient because I literally went in the bathroom and threw up. I was so upset about it. I went home and I couldn't sleep and I couldn't sleep. And I just was like, I'm not going to practice in this conventional way anymore because it doesn't give me enough time to feel good about healthcare. So I can't do this conventional like run of the mill thing anymore because I just had this bad feeling that patient, it was just an opportunity. I could have just asked, are you safe? That's all I had to, I don't know. And it just bothered me so much that I was physically ill. So I stepped away from conventional medicine because of that one interaction, basically.
So I just want to put out for everyone out there, because I think you just described everyone's dream doctor. This is a physician
Yeah.
who literally was so fed up with the 15 minutes interaction that insurance allows for each patient, not being able to treat the whole person, that she went in the bathroom, got sick, and then quit being a doctor.
Basically.
So I
That's
just
cute that,
want.
yeah.
I
I
just
think
want
it's
to
so
bring that up.
awesome that you brought up that story. So cute that I maybe write a blog about that, but that's very, that's cute that you brought that up.
It struck me because I think that there are so many people, especially women, who are
Yeah.
seeing conventional doctors in Western practices, and they are so unsatisfied
Yeah.
with the level of care that the personalized care that they're receiving. They're going in with things that they feel are disruptive to their life, symptoms that they feel are needing some attention, and are not are given 15 minutes, and it's not, and I just wanted to
And
put
you're
it
like,
out
wait,
there
wait,
because
wait, I have to tell you things. Like,
well, the reason
Yeah.
I wanted to put it
let me
out
give
there
you a background.
is is really because I want that sort of to be taken away from the doctors not wanting to know, because I just wanted to
Right.
offer that perspective that they do want to know. They go home and they feel sick about these kind of things, but this
Mhm.
is the system. And so I just
Mhm.
wanted to, kind of bring that up because I think it gives such a huge insight to who you are as a physician. And it was really like made me step back.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think healthcare, it's easy to just, make them into villains, but I do think most people go into medicine wanting to help. It's just that you're right. The system is just it's horrendous. You
Of
can't
course
really
they
play the
do.
game unless you're
Of
willing to play the game, so
Yeah.
Right, right. So you now refer to yourself as an intuitive physician.
right,
How
yes.
would you define your approach to healthcare now?
Um my approach to healthcare is just to be an advocate and go based off of what is in the patient's best interest, what they express is in their best interest, and what feels right for them, because it isn't always necessarily about it isn't even always necessarily about the particular illness or disease, if we're just talking in a negative way, or the goal of wellness on the other hand. It's just, but what is their quality of life, like what is a win for them? Because if there's a chronic pain issue, a win might not be that we can get rid of all this pain, but a win might be I really want to take a yoga class every morning, or whatever. I need to be able to drive. So it's just being an advocate and not imposing what I think they should do or what I was taught they should do, or trying to think of it from the point of view of like what's the least amount that they'll sue me, like what's the
Yeah.
least amount, what do I have to do to make sure that like it would be covered in conventional medicine and in a court of law. No, it's more just what suits this patient. That's it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
their
almost like
life.
it's almost like you take off the restraints to actually be able to listen and like hear someone's
Yeah,
needs and then be able to use your expertise actually to respond
right.
to them.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's honestly such amazing work, and I just have to start by thanking you for
of
doing
course.
that because like it just like so many women I like can hear them right now, just like that's been my experience too, of just being
Yeah.
like, but wait, can we not just talk about like just a person in general? Can we talk about me? What
Mm-hmm.
my needs are, what
Mm-hmm.
my activity level is, what my health level is. It's not just like,
Right.
oh, well, you're very healthy, moving along. But I
Right.
have this pain that I
Right.
want to be able to address just because, like, in a general sense, we're healthy, but like, I want to maximize my health. Like, how can we do
Right.
that?
Right.
So I want to dive into grounding a little bit because obviously that has been a main focus for you.
Yeah.
Can you explain grounding to someone who's never heard of it
Right.
before and why
Yes.
is it important?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll start with the first half. That's
Yeah.
huge about the why is it important. But what grounding is, because a lot of people use that term to mean energetically, like centered. And I am talking in a medical term, touching the earth outside. My whole body is conductive. Like we talked about, the generic way to think of it is like a heartbeat or your brain wave activity, but actually everything, swallowing, breathing, digestion, blinking, everything, feeling sensations, having a memory, everything is dependent on electrical function. And so my whole body is conductive. So the whole earth pulses out with an energy field, a global electrical grid. That's a natural one. It doesn't have anything to do with man-made AC, DC electricity. It's a natural, very gentle electrical field. And so when we touch any part of our skin, does not have to be feet, any part of our body, touching any part of the earth conductively outside, I'm grounded from head to toe, like flipping a light switch on. My whole body is part of that global electrical grid, which it's supposed to be. That's, for however many millions of years, it's our central nervous system, and our entire functioning has functioned in that global electrical grid. And the reason we have to be intentional with now touching the earth, which sounds ridiculous, but we do, because you can realize that days, weeks, months, and years can go by. Even if you're an avid hiker, even if you camp, even if you play sports, you're not actually touching the earth, because we have shoes, or we have rubber tires on our vehicles, or we're inside insulated buildings, or I'm sleeping in a plastic tent. So the conductive part of my body, which is all of it, is not touching the actual earth outside, because there's plastic in between. So now we have to make it an intentional practice, which people have labeled grounding. Before it was just like existing on earth and, like functioning.
Running around.
That's what, yeah, like, right? But
Yeah.
we have to call it a practice now because we're so disconnected, and nothing lasts forever. I mean, nothing lasts forever, but nothing functions optimally over time disconnected. Like, that's why you have to ground your refrigerator. You have to ground your hot water tank, because it's an actual fire hazard to have ungrounded electrical systems that aren't grounded, because they build up a charge over time, and they are a fire hazard. It's a risk. It's against code in our country and across the world to have an ungrounded electrical thing that's not operating with the option of grounding and discharging. And our body is a closed electrical loop when we're not touching the earth. When we're in an insulated building and I've got shoes on and I'm in a car or whatever, I'm not touching the earth. So I'm a closed electrical system, that heartbeat, the muscles moving, my brain thinking. And over time, inflammation builds. So if I'm not grounding this electrical system, it's kind of ridiculous that we have governmental codes making sure that our appliances are safe, but we don't have any health regulations making sure our body is safe. But it's the same thing. It's any electrical system has to be grounded to function over time. So it doesn't have to be your feet. Like, a lot of people are like, go outside and walk barefoot. And that is simple. And, your foot and pressure from your foot and sweat glands make it very conductive. So, I mean, that's great, but it's so not great like for medical advice, because so many patients have mobility issues and so many people that need to be grounded just to boost mood, but they can't because of mental health issues, or they have mobility issues, or they're recovering and they're in rehab, or they're in a hospital. They can't just go outside and walk barefoot, or they live in an area where that's not safe. So you have to have alternatives. So your hands are just as conductive as your feet. You could literally rest your face against a leaf on a tree. I mean, there's so many different, like, your whole body is conductive. So it isn't just walk barefoot because I live in this great place. Like, I honestly don't even have a backyard. So I don't even go walk barefoot in my own backyard. I have to find alternative ways, like through a sidewalk or using a grounding hiking stick, or many other ways to get grounded, both inside and out. So you just have to be intentional about grounding. But to say like you have to walk barefoot to get grounded is absolutely not true.
Oh, good. Well, I have some rapid fire grounding questions.
Okay. Yes, please.
And that was on them.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, rapid fire, just talk to me like I've never heard of this. And do I need to have my shoes off?
No.
Is a yes.
If you want to ground through your feet.
If I want to ground through my feet.
Because I'll ground through my hand. I typically ground through my hand. I almost never take my shoes off unless I happen to be at the beach or somewhere where I feel really safe taking my shoes off, because there's shattered glass and, just people spitting and dog crap and, pesticides and everything. So I almost always go through my hands, because you can I wash my hands 1,000,000 times a day. Go out on my lunch break out of my office building and touch a brick wall, which I've tested and is grounded, or like even just a signpost in my parking lot, or just sitting on the curb in the parking lot and putting my hand on the sidewalk, because then I'm going to go inside and wash my hands. And actually, while I'm inside washing my hands, I'm grounded too, because as we talked about with the water tanks being grounded, all streams of water in a building. So if I'm drinking from a water fountain, or I'm washing my hands, or I'm taking a bath, I'm washing the dishes, I'm grounded all those instances as well. So definitely don't have to be barefoot.
Okay. So, but we don't want anything between us and the grounding. So like if I was going to use my hands, I wouldn't want to wear gloves. It's got to be, is that right? It's got to be the skin.
That's right. Well, I'll put in a tiny plug because like there are conductive gloves. So, but typical gloves, no, because they're going to be polyester, plastic, spandex, whatever. But I do carry like silver gloves, which are totally conductive. So now we've been so intentional about grounding that you can be covered from head to toe and not expose your skin at all and still be grounded. Shoe stickers you can put on your shoes, gloves to keep, because I hear your dog. Is that your dog?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Is she snoring?
Yeah, it's so cute. Sorry. It's so cute.
Don't snort.
Okay. Anyway, there are specialized grounding gloves, but if you don't have one of those, then yes, don't put on regular gloves.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. But you got to know, we are able to bring you this incredible content each week and talk to you about all of the pressing matters in health and fitness because of our successful TTSL workout program.
We have incredible coaches, movement demos, and just different cycles all the time. So we take the thinking out of your training every day.
If you would like to join us, please go to ttsldaily.com and pick out your package. You are going to love every day of fitness. Okay. Grass, pavement, does it matter?
Yes.
what surfaces are we grounding on and what surfaces do not work?
Okay. So grass, yes, works. That's many plants. So any plant. So it could be the tallest tree, and the leaf on the tallest tree, if I'm up on a balcony 3 stories up off the ground and I touch a leaf on a tree, I'm grounded, like I'm on the earth at the bottom, because anything, just like a mini blade of grass, anything is grounded that's living and rooted in the earth. So in the winter, pine needles, pine trees, evergreen trees is a great way to get grounded. But the second thing you said, pavement, is not. It would be, but they put plastic, just like our foot is conductive, but when we put our plastic shoe on, it's not. So rocks and cement are grounding. If they're on the earth, it allows the earth energy right through. But when we put that black tar on it, mix the chemicals in it, it's usually not conductive. So pavement, no. And so thinking of other surfaces outside, so any water, so any puddle, stream, lake, ocean, river, and also most water indoors. So again, because we ground our water filtration systems, like in a pool, swimming pool, hot tub, you can be in a hotel in the middle of the city and the pool is on the roof. It's you're probably grounded while you're in that pool. So what other rocks, stone, anything that's poured directly on the earth, like a cement slab. So if you have a basement that's cement, I ground a lot in my garage because it's a slab of cement right on the earth. So I have a little heater set up and a comfy chair, and I take a book out there and read, or I even do, catch up with my emails and stuff in my garage in the winter, grounded. What other surfaces? I don't know. Metal poles that are in the metal's conductive, so anything that you can like I've tested with, even in an urban situation, if you're waiting to cross at a crosswalk and you're pushing that button to cross at a crosswalk, you're grounded right then and there, because metal's so conductive and it's anchored in the ground. Flag poles, stuff like that.
You just took a lot of excuses.
Yeah, no. You can be so bundled up in the middle of urban city. So I live near Charlotte, and I have a video on my YouTube and on my TikTok channel where I'm going through Charlotte and touching this water feature. Like, it's just a nasty, water fountain or whatever, but you stick your hand in, you're grounded. You touch this flagpole and you're grounded. You go in and wash your hands, you're grounded. You sit on the sidewalk edge, you're grounded. Then I tested, like, there's always, almost every city has one plant growing out of the ground, and so any tree on that leaf on that tree is grounded. So yeah, it really, you can get grounded pretty much anywhere.
Well, it's like, for me, I think about, like, when I lived in a colder climate, I was like, oh man, it was just so much harder because every day I walk outside barefoot.
Oh wow.
Like in my
Good.
neighborhood, like we
Yeah.
go. And I tell my boyfriend that I'm like, no, I'm grounding right now. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you hold his hand, even if he's not barefoot, he'll be grounded through you. And that's how I was grounding my baby, because I was barefoot, but skin to skin, you'll ground. You're so conductive that you could get a chain of 25 people in a row holding hands, all of them with shoes on, none of them touching the earth but one person, and all of them are grounded. You can ground through a pet. So I have a dog, and I'm not barefoot and I don't feel like touching anything, but when my dog's on the earth and I'm just rubbing her ears and her snout and her belly, like I'm grounding through my dog. That's how grounding and conductive all living things are. So it isn't just a blade of grass or a tree. It's all animals as well, all human beings.
If I was gonna ground in my yard and I was gonna go in the grass, and the grass is treated with some kind of something, am I ruining it?
I mean, you'll still be grounded. So the health effects of grounding are all there and present.
Okay.
But you're obviously then exposing yourself to, like, pesticides, which have their own negative health effects. But it's not like it's totally separate issues that you're like overlapping, but you're not taking away from grounding. But what I would say is, if you could wait till after a rain, then it's much safer. So
okay.
If it's like like a public area, or like in my neighborhood, we have like green spaces that are, I guess, the neighborhood takes care of, and I'm sure they put pesticides on it and stuff. So I'll do it, walk barefoot on it after it's been raining. Otherwise, I stick with my hands and do the trees.
So as far as like the amount of your body that's touching, like, do I get more better results if I'm like laying and like all of my body is touching, or does it not really matter? It's like fingertips is just as good as laying. Like, what's happening?
Okay, that is such a good question. That's an amazing question. That's going to help a lot of people. Surprisingly, it does not. You are so conductive that one fingertip grounds your entire body from head to toe. So although it feels better to float in the ocean or lay on the, I mean, I love it, but the difference in how fast your entire body gets grounded when you're like submerged in the ocean versus one fingertip touching a leaf, we're talking about milliseconds. So in the span of grounding for 15 minutes or an hour, there's zero difference in the health benefits. So you can really feel comfortable that if I am just using a teeny tiny grounding tool, or if I'm just touching one fingertip, or like just minimal skin contact, think of it as a light switch for your body, because if I turn a light on, it's not just turning part of the light bulb. Do you know what I mean? Like the light's on, and so it's illuminating everything, and that's how grounding is to the human body. The only thing that won't ground is things that are totally dry. So your hair is not going to be grounded. Someone can't touch. If I'm grounded and someone holds my hair, they won't be grounded. But if I hold their hand or they touch any skin, they'll be grounded through me. But hair won't.
So you said, like a lead into my next one. How long are we? What is like the minimum requirement? And is it better to do it like all at once, or should we be like splitting it throughout the day? What's a better idea?
Okay, this is fabulous questions. So there is no time too short, because now double-blinded studies have shown that there are health benefits that are instantaneous. So muscle tension instantaneously decreases. And when I say instantaneous, I'm talking about milliseconds. Brainwave patterns instantaneously shift into healthier brainwave patterns. Our brain is less stressed. Heart rate variability and the way our autonomic nervous system functions, metabolism and blood flow, those are immediate responses. So even if you went outside and took 3 deep breaths, I do that a lot of times before I go up to bed. I'll just hold onto a leaf on a tree and look at the moon. 3 deep breaths. It made a difference. If I was about to get a tension headache, that's unlikely, because I just decreased my muscle tension. But for the cumulative benefits that most people are looking for, blood pressure, weight management, increasing better mood, decreasing my cortisol, sleeping better at night, longer is better. And there's no time too long to be grounded, because obviously when we were born, and it was like 150, 200 years ago, before we invented plastics, we were never separated from the earth. So you could be 24/7 grounded. That's great. That's how the human body is. That's a healthy way. Just like we don't have to unplug our fridge or water tank because it's too grounded. No, it's healthy to be grounded 24/7, right? But I don't love saying that so much, because I want people to feel like, even if they're just waiting for the mail or their kids to get off the school bus, and they just touch a leaf on a tree or hold onto a metal pole just while they're waiting for the crosswalk to change. And that is long enough. Literally, that is long enough to have noticeable differences in my body, measurable in double-blinded studies. Not just, I think I feel better, but like your body is grounded and it is actually making a difference. So no time too short, no time too long. Just depends on the health benefit you want. And I can tell you vaguely how long it would take for that particular health benefit.
Okay. Last one in the rapid fires. Am I going to feel anything? Like, if I don't, am I doing it wrong?
Right. No. So I would say it's very similar to me. The flip side of the coin of the fact that we're so conductive is that the natural energy output of the earth is super healing. And so a lot of people feel it, typically women, they can feel it. And a lot of men are like, I don't feel anything. But still, in the double-blinded medical studies, it's half men. It's not based on symptoms like, do you feel like you're grounded? It's clinically, we're looking at blood tests and things like that. So it doesn't matter if you feel it or not. But the flip side of that is, because we're so conductive, artificial EMFs do harm. Like, so if I had a cell phone, or I was right next to a cell tower, or I was underneath power lines, I'm also conductive. So those artificial frequencies are affecting my health. And same thing, if you don't feel it, it doesn't mean it's not affecting your health. So I do teach a lot about electrosensitivity, and a lot of people are like, I'm not electrosensitive. I can be on my cell phones and be playing my video game like 24/7 and I don't even get a headache, but my wife will get a headache after 15 minutes. She'll be able to tell. It's affecting the body the same. You don't go by symptoms. You don't go by if I feel it or not, because the body's electrical function is not dependent on what your sensation is about it. So it doesn't matter if you feel it or not when you're grounding. It also doesn't matter if you feel it or not that your cell phone is radiating you. It just is. So you're not doing grounding wrong if you don't feel anything. But I would say, if you could center down and quiet down enough to actually be in tune with your body, most people would feel something, at least the muscle decrease in tension, and probably, if they were sensitive enough, a shift in the way that their brain pattern was thinking and feeling, and maybe a decrease in stress overall. if you can really center enough, you'll probably notice that. That's it.
You know what? Those are so no. Those are so interesting to me because I kind of like. No, I explain to people it's like the same thing about caffeine. They're like, no, caffeine doesn't affect me like that. Like I can go to sleep, and I'm like, well, science says that like although you're going to sleep, you're not getting a restful sleep, and you're talking to me about how you're tired all the time. So when we're like backing it up into saying like you feel exhausted all the time, you feel like you are getting to go to sleep even though you're having caffeine an hour before you go to bed, but like from like scientifically it says that you're not getting a restful sleep because like that's how it's affecting your body whether you think it is or not. So the same thing when it comes to like maybe you're not feeling the direct effects right away, but that doesn't mean that it's not having effects on your body. Now I want to do
100%.
like a whole like we're gonna like do a whole discussion on EMF because I think that's another like thing we dive right into. But I think you talked a lot about just like some of the effects of grounding. What are some of the what are some of the improvements for like symptoms that people could see when they start practicing grounding?
So it is like dose dependent. So there's immediate effects, like I said, with the muscle tension and the autonomic nervous system function. But then it does over time, if you're doing it routinely, say you're doing 30 minutes a day or the minimum. Okay, so I ran a study where the minimum was 15 minutes a day, and there were still noticeable metabolic changes in just 15 minutes a day. So let's say the minimum, if you want to notice cumulative change, is 15 minutes a day. Over time, you'll start to notice that your organ systems work better. I mean, that you won't notice that, but you'll notice the symptoms of that. Your circulation improves, pain might go down as inflammation resolves. You might start noticing you sleep better as your cortisol lowers, so your hormones get a little bit balanced. And then long term, because we're decreasing inflammation, we don't have long term grounding studies, but I believe we could absolutely expect. We know that inflammation increases your risk of cancer, increases your risk of neurologic disease, increases your risk of dementia, increases, pain, autoimmune.
Decreases your happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Inflammation is directly linked to depression, and one treatment you can do adjunctively for depression on top of antidepressants, and this is just in conventional medicine, they've shown even just doing anti-inflammatories like aspirin decreases depression better than antidepressants can. So it's definitely directly related to inflammation. So you're right, like by decreasing inflammation over time, we're fixing sleep, we're fixing mood disorders, and I do believe probably decreasing longer term illnesses like cancer and dementia and autoimmune. But those studies, we've been looking at grounding probably, I'll say, since the 1970s when I was born, so for 50 years or so, but really in really controlled double-blind medical studies only in the past probably 20-25 years. So we don't have decades worth of research on the long term, like autoimmune, for example, or cancer incidence, but we have studies that have gone on for months and shown we've completely repaired sleep cycles, or we have completely decreased inflammation throughout the entire body as shown by blood markers, or we've totally fixed whatever condition they're looking at. So it's such a variety because there's no part of your body that doesn't ground. So there's really no organ system that is not optimized by boosting blood flow, by boosting oxygen, by boosting nutrition, by decreasing inflammation, by taking toxins and metabolites and free radicals away. There's no organ system you can tell me that doesn't improve from it. So if you want to do like a rapid fire or like a sequence to a follow up to this, a second part two, like rapid fire different illnesses or different health objectives, and I can tell you how grounding would fit into that. But it's like so vast, it's the entire body.
That's wild. That's
incredible. Yeah,
it's wild, and it's also exciting because it's like, so just like all at once, I can just make this all better. This thing,
yes. And that's the thing, is it self optimizes because there's so many benefits to grounding, but one of the things is that it's supporting your body even when you don't feel it, and even when you don't know. It supports the body electrically, so it's immediate. So like, how if you say you had an infection and you took an antibiotic, you would have to wait for it to dissolve in your GI tract. You would be dependent on how well your GI tract took up that medication, and then you'd be dependent on circulation to carry it to the area of infection, right? So all that takes time, and it's also dependent on how healthy you are. And often the sicker you are, the worse your absorption is, the worse your digestion is, the worse your circulation is, right? So the sicker you are, the less it actually helps. So that's why you have to switch to IV, and that kind of thing. Grounding is not like that. There's nothing in your body, not one cell, that won't get grounded. So even this is so gross, but even in an infection, the pus itself becomes grounded. Or if I have a broken bone and it has a metal rod in it, that metal rod gets grounded. Like my central nervous system, my cerebrospinal fluid is grounded. Literally everything. My skin is grounded. My heart is grounded. My liver's grounded. Bones are grounded. Joint fluid is grounded. There's nothing, and it's that quick. So I don't have to wait. And the worse health I'm in, I hope I'm saying this correctly, but a lot of times in medicine, the worse health you're in, the less it can be effective, because it's relying on the health of your body to work. But in grounding, the worse health I am is not a roadblock at all, because everything becomes grounded. You could be unconscious, and if you're touching the earth or using a grounding tool, you'll be grounded. Right. So it doesn't require active participation.
That's great news, though.
Yeah.
That's just great news for everyone.
So, speaking of grounding while you're potentially somewhat unconscious, we have a lot of questions on products, because with the kind of surge in knowledge about grounding and how popular it's gotten, of course, there have been a number of products that have come out, claiming that they can give you these benefits. So, all right, what do we need? Do we need a grounding mat? Do we need grounding sheets? What products are worth the investment? Mm-hmm. And what are kind of things we could do without?
Okay, great question. So we don't need anything. It's the same. Yeah, it's just for all of your listeners to know, so they don't, freak. You don't need anything. You're conductive, and the earth is always available. Even if you're in a prison, like the cement floor is grounded. So no one doesn't have access to this freely. But if you have a health condition and you think more time would be better, which most are, or if you want to have a double whammy of, being grounded while you sleep, because that's when you're in one place the longest. So sometimes it does make sense to use grounding tools. I used to not even talk about grounding tools at all, because then when I realized how important grounding was and I looked at the market, most of the stuff is really crappy synthetic, plastic, polyester sheets, black vinyl, leatherette mats, which is just vinyl. Well, that's all going in a landfill, and it's going to stay there 500 years after I'm gone. And I just don't think, if we're turning to the earth to heal, why are we using why are we ruining the earth with this crap that's bulk produced in overseas, and it's so toxic. It's not eco-friendly, nor do I want that on my body. When people sleep on the black plastic mats, they're showing now that microplastics can go through your skin. So there's no organ system that you don't have plastic in anymore, unfortunately. So I no longer want to be in contact, really, especially with my skin, all night long. I don't want to drink from plastic bottles anymore. I don't want to sleep on a plastic grounding mat. So all that said, is why I finally opened to grounding tools, because there's patients with mobility issues, but I try and offer natural alternatives. So when I offer a grounding tool on my website, I use organic hemp as the base of the fabric, and I use stainless steel fibers so that they last an entire lifetime. Or I'll have like a grounding stick that is out of wood, and it has like a recycled copper wire going up it, so you can be grounded as you're outside walking. Just I would look for the options that are more eco-friendly, because they're not just healthier for the environment, they're also going to be healthier for your skin and your exposures, and then they won't sit in a landfill, and so they're ethically made. So obviously I would recommend my website, but there's probably other companies that are more conscious about being eco and ethically producing things, and like paying their seamstress really well and that kind of thing.
What do you think gets the biggest bang for your buck? Is it the sheets? Is it like you said, like length of time sort of spent can be helpful. So what would you say is the if you could only have one?
Okay, so I'm gonna speak from my shop, because that's the more eco-friendly option. So probably just a grounding mat, because it's big enough to sleep on. It's small enough to pack and take with you when you travel. You can put it on your sofa if you're not feeling good and you're going to watch TV and have a hot water bottle on your stomach and wait for Benadryl to kick in or whatever, whatever it is. You can be grounding there. You can use it under your feet at a desk. So probably just an organic grounding mat.
Yeah, that's what I tend to think about like what can you do when you're working because
Mhm.
everyone is going to think about like what do they do the most, but like what is that one thing that I get like
Yeah.
stuck into and then I'm like 8 hours went by.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
am
Oh,
I?
damn.
Yeah.
Wait, but so
What just happened?
can you explain? Because I purposely didn't do any research on this because I wanted to ask relevant topics, like questions that would, other people would have. How does
Right.
it work? What's
Yes,
in
I'll tell
there?
you.
What's happening?
So it's just anything conductive and right. So it's a grounding cord, and you can either, which is just a metal wire, basically. So it electrically connects you just like just think of an electrical board or electrical circuit. It's all little wires that's conductive, and so you can either put a ground stake right into the earth outside of a window or a door, like it's a little metal stainless steel rod that you literally put in the earth, and then that little cord goes in through a window, which you can shut and lock, and then clip it to a grounding tool, and then that's grounded directly through the earth outside. Or because it's a law that we have to have our home systems and buildings grounded. So, on an electrical outlet, there's the two electrical slits, and then there's that third prong. That's the grounding port. So, outlets are supposed to be properly grounded. The whole building's supposed to be grounded so that all the appliances function correctly. But we can capitalize on the fact that the government is wanting to protect all of our appliances, and we can use that grounding port to plug in grounding tools. So you can use a cord that plugs into just not the electrical slits, but just the grounding port of a grounded outlet, and then you're connected with the building's huge ground rod that's grounding the entire building in the earth. And so
I
it's
see.
it's metal basically. So then you clip that cord onto anything that is conductive. So again, there's plastic options, but what I would recommend is, and why I chose stainless steel, is it will last a long time. That's what we use in a hospital for, all of the surgical equipment. You can autoclave that and make it sterile and it'll still work. Whereas silver fibers really degrade. Like someone can buy a silver fiber based product, use it once, wash it once, and then it doesn't work anymore. So that's why I like stainless steel. So anyway, so you're clipping a cord to a fabric that's got stainless steel running through it, and then that whole thing is grounded. And so any part of my body touching that, I'm totally and completely grounded. So I do have little stainless steel wristbands that you can clip a ground cord to. So it doesn't even have to be a huge surface area. The only thing I wouldn't recommend sleeping with, so just if I ground through a wristband, my whole body's grounded, right? But I just don't recommend people sleeping with it because I don't want a cord attached to their body when they're sleeping, because it's a choke and a trip risk if they get up in the middle of the night kind of thing. So that's why I say ground the surface of your bed, like with a mat or a grounded bed top or something like that.
Well, that makes 100% sense. I mean, a kind of follow-up question to that: if we are grounding with something that is not like an organic product,
Mhm.
are we getting the same health benefits, or is it affecting us in the same way?
You're definitely grounded. So it's the same as that awesome question that you had asked about if I ground on the earth with pesticides, like a treated lawn. It's the same. You are grounded. So yes,
Yeah.
you're getting the grounded health benefits. And you should rest assured of that, because all of the grounded studies we have, this is how we have them, is they're using indoor grounding tools. So all of the benefits that you can find that I describe on my website or that we've talked about in this interview are using indoor ground tools. So there's additional benefits to being outside, like the sun exposure and the plant pheromones and the ions and the microbiome. So there's additional health benefits, but stripping all that away just to grounding is possible because you've got two grounding tools and you've got patients on them, and they don't know which cord is actually a ground cord and which is a fake sham ground cord that's not conductive. So, and neither does the researcher taking their blood, looking at their EEG, looking at their EKG. So it's double blinded. The patient doesn't know if they're in the grounded thing or not, and neither does the researcher. Then you look at those results and you can say the only difference between these two, because they were in the same room, the same length of time, same building, same person drawing blood, all the same, but one was sham grounded. What's the difference? And so that's how I can be very confident that grounding alters the body so immensely and so instantaneously, is because of that. So all that to say, yes, indoor grounding tools work, because those were probably yucky plastic disposable grounding pads that they just threw away and that are in a landfill right now. But so they still work even if it's not, the most eco-friendly option.
Quick interruption to tell you about a fan fave that you're going to want to have with your little style on it.
If you haven't had our blacklisted leggings on your body, first of all, what are you doing? Start
They're our
questioning your
most
life
popular.
choices.
They're our most popular selling legging ever.
They
So if you
are
haven't
so
tried them
good.
yet, yeah, you need them. I mean, everyone needs a black pair of leggings. But these are the black pair of leggings that you're like searching through your drawers to get and find. And now they have like your personal twist on them, which I'm obsessed with.
I love this idea of like a black legging. It's a staple, but poop, peekaboo. Here's a little skull.
Personality.
There's a little, like, it's just, I don't know. It still goes with everything. It's still a staple. It's still the blacklisted fabric, which is so buttery smooth and amazing. But you get to infuse a little bit of personality with a unique print. So if you haven't checked these out, they are on the site. Get your hands on them and just tell everybody who you are. We were asked this question, and admittedly, I had never even heard of it, but I wanted to get your thoughts because, along with the increasing popularity of grounding, we've also seen an uptick in other therapies that claim to stimulate the frequencies of the earth, including this is the first time I had heard of this from a listener. She was like, make sure you ask her about PEMF. And I was like, what is she? I was like Googling it. And also TENS. Do you say those like tens?
Yeah,
Did you say it like
tens
that?
unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you explain what these therapies are and how they are different or similar to grounding?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So just to be clear, very different. But using the same principle of the fact that the body's conductive, it doesn't have to be grounded to be conductive, because when we're ungrounded, our brain is still working and our muscles still, right? But it's just over time building up inflammation and damage. So these are not grounding you because they're just often battery packs, or they plug in, but they don't even have the grounding prong. So they're not even grounded. But they are approximating, they're trying to reproduce the effects of being grounded because they're putting little electrical impulses into the body. And so that can relax your muscles because that is how my muscle functions. That can give signals to the body because that is how my body functions. But it isn't, I'm not grounded the whole time. So I'm not getting any of the benefits of grounding at all. I haven't grounded my body. I'm just specifically trying to relax a muscle, and it might do that for a short period of time. So they're trying to approximate, and it is possible too, like, but it's not grounding. So when astronauts, for some of the films that I was in, I interviewed astronauts because when they're up in space, your body, again, it evolved. It needs to be in the Earth's electrical field. And when it's gone, you can have psychological issues, circadian rhythm issues, a lot of health issues. So I interviewed two different men who went up on the moon, Charlie Duke and Edgar Mitchell. And they said, first of all, when you're up on the moon looking at the Earth, the craving to go back and touch the Earth and just lay on the ground and kiss it is indescribable. We're not meant to be that separated from it. That's what their feeling was about it. But second of all, in those space shuttles, they have to have a generator that reproduces and synthesizes, and it's clearly not grounded, right? It's floating in space, but it reproduces the Schumann frequency, the resonance of the Earth, or your body doesn't, it starts immediately going unhealthy. So those things like the TENS unit and the PEMF and stuff like that, they, just like in the spaceship, I do feel like there's health benefits, limited health benefits, but that is not a long-term solution because you're not grounded. So I don't want to live in a spaceship with a little frequency generator that's mimicking the Earth. I'd actually rather be on the Earth. Same thing like that. If I can use something that's mimicking grounding, but it's not actually grounding me at all.
I never thought of that. Is so wild. That just like blew my mind for some reason. I never thought about I don't know why I never. So we better save the planet then, because like we're not going to go live in space. That's not going to work out.
I mean, I'm not going to go. Some people will do it, but it's not going to work for me, for sure.
Oh my God, that is so crazy. They have to have things that simulate the Earth.
Yes.
Like, wow, that's wild.
Yeah, because the human body cannot function separate from the Earth. It can't. It can't sustain health separate from the Earth, which is why you can even live on the Earth, but if you're all just never actually touching it, it's you are not going to have optimum health for as long as possible. You're just not.
Yeah. That's wild.
Mind blowing.
Mind blowing. And also, like, what a great idea to like think about, like, okay, like who's the most disconnected from the Earth? Let's talk to astronauts. Like, you know, like we can see some effects here.
No, they described like being up there is like a spiritual experience, because well, just the mind-blowing thing that we can like mathematically reproduce someone going into space and back and staying alive. Like, it's just, they Charlie Duke is just said, I see God's hand in that. It's just so mathematical and intentional. But also the fact that I just wanted to go back so bad I can't even describe it to you. It's just a connection you don't realize is there until it's totally gone. And that always kind of impacted me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this was a lot of information about grounding and the effects. I personally am excited because I didn't know that grounding was so far reaching as far as like things that I could just kind of grab with my hands and
Right.
do, when you're in the city, maybe when you're traveling, and
Right.
like water to look for, just some different things. And honestly, some things that you kind of gravitate towards naturally, where you are feeling anxious or stressed and you're
Yes.
like, you know what, I got to go put my feet in the pool for some
Right.
reason,
Don't you find that even if you don't want to do the dishes, if you spend 10 minutes doing the dishes, don't you feel a little more centered after? Don't you feel a little bit less like irritable at your partner or whatever? Like, don't you? And if you don't want to get a grounding tool, don't like being outside, allergies, whatever, at least just take a 10-minute bath at the end of every night before you head to bed. You'll be grounded for 10 minutes, relaxing your muscles, shifting your brain into sleep mode, and you'll sleep better. So anyone can get grounded in a bathtub or just soaking their feet, in a foot bath kind of thing.
I've always wondered why, like any ailment, like I literally will go in
You're
the
like,
tub,
I gotta
right to the
go.
tub.
Yes.
I'm going to the tub. Stress, going to the tub. Have a cold, going to the
Yes.
tub.
You're grounding yourself, and you didn't necessarily know it was called. That's what I was doing with Clara when she had colic. I didn't damn know what it was called when I was holding her and walking barefoot, but that's the only time she wasn't crying. And so that's what you're doing with your bathtub. And that's what animals do. If you have a grounding pad on your bed, your animal doesn't know what that's for, or it can't even maybe even see it if it's under sheets or whatever. They'll always go lay on it. They're always stealing it from their human owners, because you don't even have to know what it is, but your body is definitely called to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm really excited about all of this information. One of the last ones I wanted to ask was turf. Am I still getting any grounding benefits if I'm stepping on turf?
Do you mean like artificial turf, or you mean like
Yeah,
solid? Artificial,
like artificial turf.
no.
He
But
shouldn't have done the
eventually
backyard like that. I'm so
well,
mad at him.
do you have any trees that are growing in the backyard?
Yeah, and there's a little
They are.
portion of it that's not, but like the majority of like where like everyone's running around is like turf, because like, it's like clean, like things like that. But I'm like,
Florida problems.
Florida
problems.
Is the turf right on soil underneath, on the earth underneath?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I will say is your kids and you might possibly be grounded when it's really like raining or soaking wet. And it's not because the turf is conductive. That's still just plastic. But the water itself. So lots of times things you don't think you're grounded, you are. So if I am in plastic flip-flops, I shouldn't be grounded. But if it's raining and or I've been in the garden in the hose and they're soaked with water, the water itself will ground me. So I have tested and been grounded through like flip-flops. You could be grounded through that turf. If it's puddles of water, you probably are. So maybe adding a sprinkler play when your kids are out there or something.
That's a great idea.
Can I ask you a quick question? This is not on my list, but I'm just curious. How are you testing if you're grounded? How are you doing that?
How am I what?
How are you testing whether or not you're grounded?
Oh, I wish I had it within reach, but on my website I have this. Anyone can do it. And if you've ever watched a single YouTube video I've ever made, I've shown in using this ground tester, but it's a universal grounding tester. And all it is a little pack that has a ground cord that you can plug directly in the earth, or if you're inside, you can plug it into a grounded outlet, because it just needs to be grounded. And then it'll test you if you're grounded, because it's a continuity tester. If I'm grounded, like I'm standing on the earth, or if I'm standing on a grounding tool and I push the button, I'm making a continuous loop with the actual earth, with the ground cord, with the ground meter, with my body, and with the grounding tool. It makes a big loop. If any part of that is disconnected, I'm not grounded, the grounding tool isn't working, or the meter isn't grounded, it'll show no. And if it's a continuous loop that includes the earth, it'll be green and say, yes, I'm grounded. So that's how you test. It's a continuity tester, basically.
This is all very interesting. It is.
Yes.
I agree with
you.
You
Can go.
Exciting.
You can test all of your this is the first thing I do when I moved into an office place, or when I move into a home, or when I'm on a trip or whatever. you just plug the grounding test meter in and test all these different surfaces. You're like, oh my gosh, this metal bench is grounded. I didn't realize that. Oh, this handrail is grounded. Cool. So if you just test everything, you have a map of places you can go, just like your bathtub in a pinch, and you'll get grounded. Or this tree or this, but then you're surprised and you're like, this isn't grounded actually. So it must be in some plastic basin. I don't know.
Oh, this is very exciting. So I want to give our listeners more places to hear from you, more places to learn about this, because I think that they're going to be interested in hearing more from you.
Okay. Well, if you hop over to my website, it's intuition-physician.com. Like we were talking about the intuitive physician part at the beginning. It's intuitionphysician.com. And I have so many things, but the first thing is just to sign up for the weekly newsletter, because then you'll just get once a week just some uplifting holistic health tip. I have a tab that's medical grounding studies. If you want to read, if you want to know what it does to sleep, you want to know what it does to cardiac health, you want to know what it does to neuromuscular health, I have like a tab, and it just link you to every single medical study that we have so far relevant to those issues. So the medical grounded studies is a good resource on my website too.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Laura. This has been so crazy informative and so much to
Good.
think about. And I just love, anytime we can get alternative, holistic, and preventative things,
Yeah.
right? Not reactive, out to listeners. And like, it's just so accessible and it's so doable. And you really did a great job in clarifying like how we do it, why we do it. And I just want to thank you for all the knowledge, all the knowledge bombs today. They were awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And also you asked amazing questions, and they were really awesome. So thank you for that. Yes. You asked a lot of unique questions, like from why I left conventional medicine because of that patient to, like what services outside aren't grounding you and stuff like that. So you did great. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.